Hello students, I am Dr. Raksha Nagpal and I am here to discuss the chapter that is the cell. Okay, so we start the chapter. Before we starting, whenever you see in your surrounding, you just see two components there and two objects there. That is the one is the living object and another is the non-living object. So we'll discuss about this. One is the living object, right? And another is the non-living object. Whenever we see these objects, there is a something different in this, right? So what is the basically difference in between? There is a basic difference is the cell. So we'll discuss about the cell. What is the cell? Cell is the structural and functional unit of life. It is the structural and functional unit of life. As we say, it is a structural and functional unit of life. So we understood there is a two component. One is the structural component of the cell, another is the functional component of the cell that make a particular life of the organism, right? So we'll discuss about the structural unit and further we'll discuss about the functional unit. So these two components that perform basically for the organisms. So cell is the basic part that makes the organism, or you can say the that arise the function in the organism. So start with the cell as a structural unit of life. Okay, so cell as a structural unit of life, structural unit of life. How it is say it is a structural unit? So let's start with the cell. Like this is the cell, right? So this is the cell. It is a single cell right now. Okay, when we see these cells group together like in the manner, it is grouped together and perform a specific function. So group of cell, this group of cells, now we called it tissues. This is called tissues. Okay, this is called tissues. These group of cells, that is called tissue. Now tissue performs a function for the organism. Okay, so there is a now group of cells which perform the function of the organisms. Okay, so when tissues group of tissues, so right now here group of tissues are there. So different type of tissues, they are clustered together and perform a specific function. So likewise in the group of tissues, this is also called organ, right? So it makes organ in the body of an organism, right? So in furthermore similar kind, a group of organ. So now organ group of organs connected with each other, and this form organ system. This form organ system. In that case it forms organ system. Likewise, when organ system stay connected and forms a full body, that is called organism. So in making the organism, the basic structural part, that is cell. So we call cell is the structural functional unit of life. So we prove that it is a structural unit of life. Similarly we proved it as a functional unit of life. Let me discuss about the functional unit of life. Okay, so cell as a functional unit of life. Cell as functional unit of life, right? Whenever we talk about it is a functional unit, how we consider it is a functional unit? Firstly, it is independent in their function, independent in their function. So each and every cell that is independent for their function. Okay, and the activity of an organism, like one of the organism it forms, the activity of an organism that depends on organism that depends on cells. First point is cell cluster. Cell cluster, it means interactions of cell, interactions या cell interactions लिख सकते हैं, interactions, and the product of cell, and the product of cell. Okay, that is fine. Product of cell, it means any organism, as we already see in the structural unit, organism that depend on the cell to form an organism. If cell forms an organism, so cell and cell groups, like it forms a cluster in the form of tissues, it forms a cluster in the form of groups, organ system. So these interactions and also the product of the cell that forms, that is the activity for an organism. So that is responsible for activity of organism. That is the point which prove that cell is also the functional unit of life. So if cell performs the function, then organism perform the function, right? So it is completely understood now. So let me move to the next part, that is the type of cells on the basis, on the basis type of cells, on the basis of type of, on the basis of number of cells, number of cells, oh, cells, type of organisms, will study type of organisms on the basis of number of cells. So there is a two type of organisms here. We firstly write organisms, and there are two type of organism basically. One is the called unicellular organism, right? Another one is the multicellular organism. Okay. When we talk about unicellular, as the name indicate, you have to know what it means. Uni means a single, cell means cell. So the organism which made up of only single cell, then it is called unicellular organism. So this only a single cell is the independent cell, right? It is the independent cell responsible for what it is? It is responsible for what? All the activity, all the functions, all the framework of the organism. Which type of organism they are unicellular organism. So responsible for all activities in unicellular organism, right? Right. So let we discuss about some few points for multicellular organisms here. In case of multicellular, what it means? What is the multicellular? Multi means multiple, and the cellular means cells, right? So multiple cells are there. So organism with the multiple cells, they are come under the multicellular organisms. Okay. So there is no single independent cell. So there is a multiple cells that are responsible for the function of multicellular organism. So here is the, we already discussed this point. Okay, so multiple cells responsible for the activity, for activity of multicellular organism, multicellular organism, right? So what are the examples behind the like unicellular and multicellular? So we just go through the some of examples here. In unicellular there is a amoeba, paramecium, right, protista. It is a complete kingdom here. Okay, that amoeba and paramecium come under the protista too. Okay, and yeast, that is fungi, and bacteria, that is come under the monera. These all are unicellular, or few are not written here, so we write it etc etc and etc. Okay, so in multicellular there is must be most of the fungi, plants and animals. So these are the multicellular organisms. So on the basis of number of cells we studied, we have find two type of organism. One is the unicellular organism and another one is the multicellular organism, right? So let me discuss about the history of the cell. Few points on the history of the cell. So let me start history of cell. So in this case, what is the history? There is a first scientist that name is Robert Hooke. And Robert Hooke in 1665 they observe cork layer of plant. And what is the cork layer? It is the outer side layer of plant. Okay, so when they observe cork layer under the microscope, under the microscope, so what he saw, he observed that there is a some honeycomb like structure. He saw just honeycomb like structure, and this structure is just look like honeycomb. Okay, like this is like honeycomb. We couldn't understand what it is, but it is a like just look like a honeycomb. And in each segment it is called cell. So first, Robert Hooke is one of the scientists who start the study of cell. So it is also called the father of cytology. Okay, so but there is a something that is that is the reason he failed to understood completely. There is a reason, that is the cork cell, which is the dead cell. So he invented the cell, but it is a only dead cell. Okay, it is not completely, we can say, the living cell. Okay, so it is a dead cell. So another one scientist that name is Anton van Leeuwenhoek. So another scientist jinka another scientist that name is Anton van Leeuwenhoek. Okay, van Leeuwenhoek. Now he observe, what he observe a living cell, that is human blood cell. Observe human blood cell. When he observed these human blood cells, he named it is a animalcules, and it is a living cell. And besides it, it also make or invented compound microscope. Compound microscopes, which able us in these days to study every microscopic object. Okay, which will help us. Okay, so because of this discovery, this Anton van Leeuwenhoek called father of microbiology. Father of microbiology. Okay, so this is all about for the today session. We'll join on the next session. Okay, thank you and have a good day. Ta-da.